Hey everybody, gonna be knocking out HobGoblin. Just gonna share this with the page real quick, and we will go from there. Okay. Now this one shouldn't take too long because I'm gonna be working on this one with Copics, so we shouldn't have too much of a problem. I hope not. Oh, I'll have to come back on that point because I missed a spot when I was inking it earlier and touching it up. I missed a spot, so I'll have to do that part later when the ink dries. But I'll start off on the oops, wrong end, the suit, so we can get that done. And I'm using a Y19, which is almost an orange. It's like an egg yolk yellow. I know, I just grossed a bunch of people out. You'd be surprised how many people don't like eggs. I was raised as a farm boy, so believe me, I like them. But anyway, moving right along here, we are just a couple of days out from the Happy Christmas, Merry New Year stuff. So, be sure and pass that along to your friends and family and say, hey, a reminder, buy me stuff. So, remember, give me presents. Be shallow, be materialistic. It's the modern age of the human race. That's the way we are these days. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Hope everybody's having a great holiday season out there, and I know we're heading into the bigger part of the actual holidays coming up this next week here, and following through to the next week. However, I will still be here every day. Probably later in the evening though, because of the fact of friends and family coming in and me going out during the day or whatever to see people specifically for visitation and whatnot. So going out to not to. I made that sound bad, didn't I? What you got visitation for? Nobody. Just saying that I like to go visit and go see the family and this stuff this time of the year because I'm a real heavy Christmas person. I love that holiday for some reason, and it's not necessarily the whole gift thing. It's just it's such a big, massive holiday, and everybody's willing to get together and stuff. And I get to see family that I don't get to see normally, so I'm all for that. I get to see the cousins and the aunts and stuff like that I don't normally get to see. And I get to see my brother, which I only get to see him a couple of times a year because we're so busy. And my sister when she comes in town, and that kind of thing. Love to get to visit with her and her kids. But yeah, I come from a very large family, and we used to do every holiday together. It was either at my mom's house or my grandparents' home, and it was always a big shindig. But yeah, always something cool. I don't know. As you get older, people move on and do their own individual family thing and tend to leave that alone, and then where everybody used to go to the oldest parents' house, like the grandparents and stuff. As they get older, I've found out that I've recently discovered in my older years that because I'm 40 now, 41, and got to throw in that one, but specifically around the holiday season, it tends to be more around them floating to our houses, which is strange to me. You know, why not still have the family get together and do the big thing, you know? Um, it's not that complicated. And I go out of state sometimes for certain pieces of my family connection, you know? And a lot of people get bent about that because they have to drive 20 or 30 minutes. It's weird. It's a little selfish to me. But, and I don't want to sound judgmental, but, you know, it's true. It's you know, you got a 30, 40, 50 minute hour drive, and, you know, you can't afford the time to go see, you know, 80-year-old relatives. That's a problem. But anyway, keeping it on the light here, so we will leave that alone. But yep, because I don't want to be a bummer about it. It's awesome. I love Christmas. And Christmas loves me. I am a 40-year-old man, and most people would think this is strange because of the fact that, you know, I'll give you a little tidbit about me tonight, which is funny. You know, most people think I'm crazy for collecting comic books at my age, but the funny thing is, I collect Santa Clauses as well. I do. I have a huge collection of decorative Santa Claus pieces, and I collect them from all over, and that's my thing. This is my holiday. And no, I'm not, you know, I remember that it's Jesus's birthday and all that, and as a religious person, I'm cool with that, you know. But for Christmas, particularly Christmas, I've just always had this thing where I really dig the concept of Santa, because, you know, Santa Claus is, for lack of a better term, Santa Claus is hope. You know, I mean, yes, Jesus represents hope and faith and all that good stuff too, and I totally get that. But what I'm saying specifically here is that he represents an attachment to faith and imagination on a totally different level, because that's something you hang on to from your childhood, for one thing, that you don't have to let go of. And two is, you know, it's a tradition that you can keep and give that same innocence and hope and light into children around you and not have to worry about it. Excuse me. And knowing that you won't be judged for it. You know what I mean? That's one of the few things that people don't judge for. And I mean, if you do, shame on you for doing that. But, you know, for the most part, it's kept light, you know? And that can keep you very youthful in life by hanging on to things like that and being free enough to enjoy such things. And a lot of people don't. And I think that's a total bummer that they don't. So, you know, lighten up. Lighten up. That's what I say, lighten up. Now, I'm going to go in with this orange here on top of the hood here. Normally, I would do a lighter yellow, you know, that would shade this in but not go as bright. But on this one, I'm just going to go full out animated style and go for an overkill orange and just shock it in contrast. I really like the look of it when it does this on these cards. And I don't know, it just gives it a vibrancy that it wouldn't normally. So I'm trying not to cross over too much because I got to put that pale yellow on his face when we're all said and done here. Let's see. Start right in here. I'm going to make the hood and cape have this really beefy pumpkin orange. And beefy is a term for coloring. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a strong term. But anyway, I'm just gonna kind of make stuff pop out a little bit here. And I know this isn't the ideal, perfect way to do this, but I really like I said, I like it to contrast. And when you go in and do it this way, it gives it a more of a classic comic or a cartoon type of feel to it. Not to mention, art is completely open to interpretation, so if you get bent about it, that's your problem. You know, when people come at you with different art styles and stuff, don't take that stuff personal, because, you know, that's just the way they see the world. And that's why so many artists are different. And people get to step in and say, okay, I really dig this dude, or I dig that person, or I dig that, you know, I dig that girl, I dig that, you know, it's because of personal perception. So chill. Don't get all bent about it. If you don't dig it, I totally respect that. But if you do, there's more to come. And, you know, I don't do comics like this. Like, you know, I've said that over and over, and I really don't. I don't do comics this way because it would make a comic book look flat. You know, I did that for a Western story that I did a while back for Thrill Vault Comics, which is one of my side brands. And I did it on purpose for that, to give it that 1970s, you know, that late 60s, early 70s contrast. And people didn't get it, and they said my artwork looked flat. They said it looked horrible. I got ripped bad on that one, and that was in Thrill Vault #1, the Thrill Vault Anthology #1. And I found that very, very interesting that people just didn't see it as an artistic interpretation, but they took it literal, as, you know, as hardcore as possible. And some people got on to me about it, and I was like, you know what, bite me. It was artistic interpretation. It says right there that it's a period piece, from, you know, to reflect a retro style. And, you know, people get bent about that stuff, and they're so judgmental, and everybody's an expert and whatnot. And you gotta take it with a grain of salt, you know. So if you're an artist out there and somebody's ripping at you, just understand that they're not the person that you're supposed to be reaching out to, and leave it at that. That's why I don't get bent about that stuff. You want to criticize me, go ahead. I don't care. You got your opinion, and I've got my truth. So, and that's the way I look at it. And that's the way you should too, if you're a creative person. Because if not, you know, if you can't get a thick skin and understand, people aren't going to understand. And that's what you got to look at it as, is some people not understanding your interpretation. Okay, if they don't get it, then they're not meant to, and you're not meant to compromise and meet them in the middle on that, because that's not for them. It's for the people that do get it. So don't get bent, and just stick with your fans, say thank you, and move on. You know, I see that all the time. People want to, you know, lash out and whatnot, and get into arguments and whatever. And it cracks me up to no end to watch these professionals, quote unquote, get online and go on like Twitter and Facebook and just hammer it out. And it's, you know, I've seen that before. I've been scammed before, and I've seen, you know, things stolen before. I've seen concepts taken before. I've seen scripts taken before. And I've seen the harshest criticism that is possible from, you know, people that call themselves, quote unquote, professional editors. And you know what? They do the job just like we do. At no matter what level you get paid at, or what responsibility you're given, you still get the pay. You know, you still get the skill, and you still get the job done. And if it's a miss for them, it's a miss for them. So what? On to the next, you know? And art is a constant growth and improvement type of thing. So what you do is you go into the artwork, give it your best shot, get it done, get it out there, and people that get it They love it and they get it. Okay, the rest won't, and they're not meant to. And what you do with that is you move on to the next one, and you resonate to the people that resonated to the first piece, so that you can keep going and going and going and going and going and going. Hope that makes sense. I really do. I hope that makes sense, because that is very important information right there. Because so many people just go, "Oh God, they chewed me up," and they get criticism and get chewed up, and then they run away and run home to mommy, and they're 40 years old. Oh, they said I suck. Don't do that. Do not let those people win and beat you up like that. That's their whole purpose in life. And there are people out there that get weird about it. They want to. They want to hurt your feelings. They want to crush your dream to get you out of the way. And the worst thing you can do, the absolute worst thing you can ever do, is ask another artist to critique your work. Never, ever, ever, ever ask someone that's doing the same job you're supposed to be doing to criticize your work. If you ask them to critique it, they're going to come from their artistic perspective, which is not your artistic vision. Understand that wholeheartedly. They will rip you apart and not mean to. Otherwise, they'll be superficially nice and say, "That looks great, man," as they're going, "Oh my God, that's horrible." And then a month later, you see them draw the same thing you drew, and it's tenfold better because they improved on what you did in their style. So trust me, it happens all the time. That's why I say, "Hey man, cool, check this out." And if a guy's like, "Hey, that's great, man," and keeps moving on and supports me on it, and I support them in their artwork, fabulous. That's awesome. Now I love that. Sincerity is awesome. But if you go looking, what I'm saying is don't go to conventions and look for artists to review your work. Go to editors. Don't ever go to artists to review your work, because they'll trash you. They'll tear you up one side and down the other. What I'm talking about is going to conventions and going up to your favorite famous artist and saying, "Hey man, review my stuff." And they tell you how good you are and rip you a new one with the criticisms as well as the props. And they're going to tell you, "Hey man, you're good, but you need a little more work, guy," and blah blah blah. And they're going to blow you off. And then next month you'll see it. You'll see whatever they did on their DeviantArt or whatever. Don't do that. Show your work to editors. Show your work to fans. Self-publish it. Promote it. Stick it out there. But don't go asking critiques from other artists, because they're batting for the same job that you want 9 times out of 10. And like I said, I'm not saying avoid community. I'm just saying avoid the trouble, because there's a difference. Because I'm an artist, and you can ask me all day long, but I openly edit as well. So I'll tell you flat out, if you ask me particularly, ask artists that edit. I edit as well, and I publish, so that's a different thing. What I'm talking about is don't go ask, don't go ask a Todd McFarlane, no offense to Todd. I'm not saying he wouldn't. I'm just saying don't ask, Todd or those type of guys, the guys on that level. Because a lot of times they're busy trying to sell their work at the convention, not try to critique yours. That's not their job. So go to editors. I hate to be harsh about it, but it's 100% true. And I'll tell you flat out, I hate doing conventions. Because I like putting my time into focus on work. Not that I'm bashing conventions by any means. We all need to get out there and do more, because they're being overrun by pop culture stuff and cosplay and all that, and they're not getting the comic book representation they need. But it's really easy to get what's labeled as a con artist in retrospect of getting into conventions and stuff. Oops, I overran my hood there. I'll have to black that out. You get labeled a con artist or a card artist or, a limited indie artist or an appearance artist, that kind of thing. And then those conventions will try to get you booked in constantly, and leave you hanging. So understand, you got to do it in stride. look over at the chat box here, see. Hey, Mark, thanks, man. I appreciate it. You know, and don't get me wrong. Like I said, go for conventions if that's your thing. And, you know, if not, that's cool too, whatever. But I prefer not to do conventions. I get asked all the time, why don't you do more conventions? I don't do conventions because of the fact that if I did conventions, I'd spend my life doing conventions. I wouldn't get any comics done. And you can ask any convention artist that, and they'll tell you the same thing. You know, why don't you do comic books? So what comics can I find of your stuff? You know, and they'll be like, oh, I don't have time for comics because I've got too many things going for shows. And it's vice versa because it's very time consuming. And that's why I don't do conventions. I've done 4 conventions and all of them have been remote. Right here from home. I did Comic Palooza 3 years in a row. And I did virtual cam casting just like I'm doing right now. Live streaming. And that is exactly where I left it. Because, excuse me here, I got to get a really light yellow for his face. The reason I don't do cons is because of the fact that I don't get strapped down and I have to do projects and get comics out. Otherwise, you guys would never see comics from me. That would be a travesty. Because 2018, I held up from 2018 to do some project development and get some stuff off my table. And now, all of those projects are going to be, by the end of January, all of those projects are going to be turned in and published and out and released for 2018, the ones that I haven't finished yet. And my projects for 2018 on Firestorm and Thrill Vault Comics are running all over the place, getting finished. And being a one-man army and working on 6 or 7 titles at a time is really, really hectic. A lot of people told me not to do multiple titles, but I want to establish my comic book universe, you know, and I work Kirby style. I do a couple of pages a day, and even though you guys only see me do this card, I still do 3 to 5 pages a day, and that's around my other work. So I would be able to, in an 18-hour day, I would be able to get more than that, but I have family time, you know, with my daughter and stuff and whatnot, as well as other things going on, so I have to allow for that time. But yep. And everybody's like, well, how do you draw that fast, you know? And well, you guys see me drawing these cards every day. I mean, I lay out everything and then lay out the card, lay it out, draw it, and then there we go, we're done in about 30 minutes. Well, I do pages the same way, and I've discussed that before. I do pages the exact same way. So what I do is I lay out the entire book, and then I go in and pencil it all. I'll lay out 1, 2, maybe 3 books in a sitting, and that's all I'll do all day is script, you know, hover and pencil it out, and I'll lay out a stack of pages, and then the next couple of days I'll go in and pencil them all. And all the hard work's done at that point. All I have to do is go pencil it, and I get to have fun and do all of the fancy design work and all that and not have to worry about all that mess. And the reason for that is because I heavily prepare that stuff. So if you want to be a comic book professional, you got to put in the time and do professional level work. I mean, you can't call yourself a comic artist if you're not drawing comics. And you know, a lot of people try to argue with me, you know, well, if you're doing so much comic work, why don't you have some comics out? Well, I do have comics out. You know, you can find my comics on Firestorm.com. You can also go firestormcomics.com, excuse me, and you can also go to Amazon and see my stuff. But have I put out a bunch of new stuff monthly? No, because I'm building up and doing what I'm doing something Mark Silvestri suggested, which is to go in and build up. He said build up at least 6 months worth of books first. And he said that was the biggest downfall when he started, was he didn't build up Top Cow Comics with having comic books done first. That's why he had so many artists on staff, because he had 3 or 4 artists doing the same book, and they would rotate from month to month depending on when their book got done. And he said that was one of the biggest downfalls that he had with Top Cow, was he had the best talent, but the thing was is he had so many of them, he couldn't keep them in work fast enough, because they were doing they couldn't have their own shining moment because they were all swamped taking care of each other's books, if that makes sense. And that's a problem. That's a huge problem. I don't want to have to do that. And being a one-man show like I am, working with other writers and things like that, and working with inkers and whatnot, I like to keep it simple, because so many people, I'm so small right now, people tend to they'll do 1 issue, they'll sign a 3-issue contract with me, and not to throw anybody under the bus, I'm just saying it's habit of the nature of the beast in indie comics. Okay, the big thing is everybody wants to make a mark. And what they like to do is they like to sign on for a 3-issue contract, and then they like to go in and go, okay, we got 1 book done, and then they flake on the 2nd and 3rd book. And then I'm left hanging. And I've done that numerous times. I've seen them do that just about, other than the Catman cast, the Catman team, which was awesome. I would never throw Ronnie or Lewis or Tom under the bus at all. Tom was limited run. He was my letterer at the time. He was always going to be limited run. He said so from the get-go, from Jump Street, and I knew that was going to happen. That's why I letter the book now. And Ronnie had to go on her own books and take care of her grandchild, which was newborn at the time, at the end of issue 3 when we wrote it. And that's why I'm writing issue 4 and on. And matter of fact, I've written issue 4 and on up to issue, 12 or 13 now. So I'm prepped up and knocking artwork out on that. And it's been a while, but I had to take some time and get that stuff situated so that when I came out with these books, I wouldn't fail on you guys and not have product. You know what I mean? That was the big thing. I didn't want to come out and have Firestorm stop. And I didn't want it to be limited series. I wanted it to be hardcore and be a production company that could stand up. It's not a lack of money. It's not a lack of boundaries. It's not a lack of fame. It's not a lack of production. It's just control of the quality for the book so that you guys don't miss out. That's my big. I don't want to have comic books be like the early Image days where everybody fell off the radar after a couple of issues, or crap got shoved out because of the fact that everybody had to produce to meet publication deadlines and didn't have the talent to back it up because of the fact that they didn't have everything in place. So, if you ask why I'm not producing on a monthly basis right now and starting that way in February of 2018, to where, when these books come out in late January, you guys will have full-fledged comics every month after that. The reason for that is because I'm respecting you as fans and giving you good continuity and doing what's right rather than what's easy in the comic book industry, which is to just shove a book out there, make it famous, and then let the fans deal. I don't want you guys to suffer like that. I want to have these comics run, I know I've talked about a webcomic for a while, and the reason I held off on that one, same reason. It had to go with the monthly titles, and I had to produce those titles instead first. And the comics, the webcomic is coming in January. And it's going to be 25 pages. It's going to be a full-fledged comic book, 1 page per day, every day, so that you guys can see that. But the reason for that is because of the fact that I'm putting in the effort to do it, And I'm not trying to talk smoke at you or brag right now, because that's not what this is about. This is telling you as to why, you have to have a professional integrity. And, it goes back to those conversations I've had a couple of times now where people talk about, well, I want $80 a page to draw a comic book. Okay, you want $80 a page. That's a low rate, but for an indie company, that's, and for an artist that's unknown, that's pretty fair for, you know, for somebody to hire somebody really low rate, because they're, you know, of their experience and professionalism, and they're new talent, as it were. That happens. But why would you want, you know, an $80 rate, or, you know, an 80 to anywhere from $350, as some of the pro guys want, and then say, well, when I ask you what your timeline is, they go, well, I need about 14 weeks. Well, 12 weeks is 3 months, and I'm doing a monthly book, and you want 14 weeks just to do your coloring part. That doesn't count the inking, the lettering, the scripting, the actual artwork of the penciling in between. You're asking me for 14 weeks to do the same work that everybody else does in 2. But yet you're asking, you know, professional page rates. And then you wonder why editors go laugh at you and don't give you work. And then they say, well, that's just the indie way of it. You know, that's the indie way. No, it's not. Don't be lazy. Do professional work. You should be doing at least a page a day. If you're not doing a page a day, you're not professional. And I'm sorry, but that's 100% true. If it takes you 3 days to color 1 page, you've got a problem. And I'll call you out on it every time, flat out. And I have so many people get mad at me and unfriend me and unfollow and whatever because of that fact right there. But it's 100% true. Why would I blow smoke at you? You know? Don't ask me for top page rates if you're not going to do top page production. It's just ridiculous. Well, I got to eat and I got to live. And yeah, but I got to produce books. So guess what? Come talk to me when you can produce a book. So, I mean, I know that's harsh, but that's an editor's position. So understand that. You know, that's where an editor's coming from. Because when you take in a portfolio to them and you say, well, I did these 5 pages and they're beautiful, you show your best work, and then they ask you how long it took to produce that, and you tell them it took you 4 weeks to produce 3 pages. Ha! I'm sorry, they're gonna look at you like you lost your marbles. And they'll tell you it looks great. You'll hear from us. Thanks for your interview. You'll hear from us, and then you'll never hear from them because of the fact that they're not going to hire you, and they know they're not because they can tell right off the bat you're not professional enough to do the work. And it's not that your artwork isn't good. It's just you take too long to do it. And I've seen that happen way too often, especially these days, because nobody wants to step up and do the work. You know, everybody's always like, well, you know, I'm a great artist and I can do this and I'm a pro. Don't tell me I can't draw, and don't tell me I'm not a professional, and don't tell me this and don't tell me that. Well, what books do you do on a monthly basis? Because comics is a monthly business. Think about that one. Think about that one. I love asking people that because it shocks them. They're like, well, that's not right. That's not fair. It's not fair that you wasted my time for an interview when you're not ready to do the work. That's what's not fair. But I ask you again, what have you produced in a month? What have you produced on a professional level that can get you in there? You know what I mean? And I've been cussed at and called everything under the sun, which cracks me up too, because people just get bent about this stuff. And it's just like, well, I can't help you, man. I can tell you what to do to get the job, but you got to do the work to get it. Independent comics don't work that way. Yes, they do. And that's why independents get disrespected so much, because they have to go in and do an anthology once every 6 months or once a year. And people wonder why they publish on the quarter and they don't produce. Well, it's all in perspective, people. It's all in perspective. I get that all the time. I get at least 3 nasty emails a day with people telling me, you suck, man. I'm a professional. Why won't you hire me? You just told me I suck, so why would you care? Just saying. I find that sort of thing very amusing. Be professional. Get out there and get your stuff done. Knock it out. You want to show me how good you are and you deserve, the big money? Produce. Produce, produce, produce. That's the way to do it. I've got a couple of artists that are family members, and I've turned them down because of that right there. And I've told them flat out, you're not good enough. Not yet. What? Yeah, seriously. But we're family, bro. No. We are family. It doesn't mean I don't care about you. It doesn't mean I don't love you and you're not family. It's just business, I have friends that are artists that get butthurt about it all the time. Butthurt's a technical term, by the way. And I hear them get upset about it all the time just because I disagree with them. You don't know what good art is, man. Oh, really? Okay, cool. Okay. You're coming to me for the job, but yet I don't know. Okay. Peter David said it one time really well. He came out because he was an editor for a while. If you guys don't know that, Peter was is like one of the best editors and writers in comics, and he's really reclusive now. I really dig the dude, and his Hulk stuff was some of my favorite stuff. And I used to love to hear him talk because he would go on those panels back in the late 80s, early 90s, and he would talk to people all the time, and he would tell them, you got to be able to produce. What's the number one thing you can give to new artists as advice? Draw professionally. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? Well, that means draw professionally. If you're not drawing at least 1 page a day, don't bother submitting work. You're not fast enough. And then Mark repeated that as an artist and an editor and a publisher himself. So I was just like, there's something to that. Now I'm going in and adding in these little accent points. I've got my hand in the way right now, but I will get out of the way in just a moment before we finish this up. You can see these really low points here like this, these super dark points that I'm putting in. And the reason I'm doing that is because when they dry, they'll make this orange look really bright. Just kind of shading stuff in and going on and on and on and on and on with this wonderful shading here. If I do say so myself. Let's see. Adjust this lamp. It's like right in my face. So I think I've toned that up to where it's just about right. I want to tone these down just a little bit more so you guys can get that going on. But yeah, during the Christmas holiday, draw something nice for somebody. Practice, 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 practice. And I'll still be here every day, just as always. Like I said in the beginning, just in case you missed that. And if you have any questions about this stuff, feel free to ask me. I have no problem with that either. But like I said, go to bat and make it work. And understand that when you do this, you're going to have thick skin here. And you're going to have to, and I mean, by that, I mean, you've got to do the work, If you're an artist, get off your butt and do the work and stop saying, well, I make a pretty picture once a week. Show me what you did today. Because I guarantee I can pull out my portfolio and show you that right now. I'm not gonna because of the books that I've got. But you get the gist. I'm going to do something really cool here with this before we finish it up. This is something I like to do with this character right at the end. You can't do it in the beginning because then it gives it away. But I like to give the shade tint on his eyes right there like that. Makes them pop out a little bit. But as it were, I'm going to pull this out so you guys can see. Pull my light down here so you guys can see it better. I may have to turn on the extra light doing these in the evenings because with it getting darker because of the holiday and stuff, it tends to suck up the light a little bit. But anyway, hope you guys can see that. Hope you dig it. Hope you enjoyed it. And tomorrow I'm going to do, you know what? I'm going to save that for a surprise. I'm going to let you guys have a pick on one of these. We're going to poll this for the people that are watching right now. You guys can pick Solomon Grundy. I will color Solomon Grundy. I will color Dr. Doom, or I will color Reed Richards. Up to you guys. You pick it, I'll stick it. So until tomorrow, thank you very much. Hug somebody, tickle somebody, make them smile, make them laugh, make them feel good, give them something nice. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.